taking it, yeah.
Fuck yeah. Fucking chameleons, man. Listen to how beautiful that is. Fucking A, man. What a good night this is gonna be. How am I?
Yeah.
I'm well. I'm excited for tonight. I mean, this is a great honor to be playing with such a legendary band as the Chameleons. So, music is going fantastic. The rest of my life is in shambles.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of a depression. I don't know if anyone else seems to be aware of it. So I'm having a hard time making ends meet. It doesn't pay to be an artist. But we all love what we do so much that we can't really take any other tack in life. So making ends meet is tricky, but we've got our passion, right?
So is Ming Vauze, is that your real name?
No, it's not. But I've been going by that for probably 15 years now. I was playing in a band in Nashville, and my other guitar player, my friend, was reading the Andy Warhol diaries, and there was a mention of a Chinese transvestite that was hanging in the Factory days named Ming Vauze, and he was like, and at the time I was the oldest member of the band. And he was like, you're kind of old and cracked and precious like a Ming Vauze, just like this guy in the Factory, and it's kind of stuck.
My next question was going to be like, are you familiar with Miss Ming Vauze? And like, apparently she was this transvestite?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and I'm scared that if I ever make any money that she is going to get all of it. But I grew up in LA until I was about 7, and then my parents split and my mother took me to New England, and it was such a culture shock. I ended up living in the woods, and I guess I just gravitated to music and decided I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and there was nothing else to do in that town, you know. So I literally grew up in a town of 2,000 people, but then I would fly back to Los Angeles and see my father in the summers, so it was just a very weird bipolar existence. But that's so
how did you end up on the Peter Murphy music video set?
That was one of the best days of my life, you know, and it sounds so, you know, everyone has, I mean, Peter Murphy is a fan of someone's too, you know. Everybody starts somewhere, has an inspiration from somewhere, and Peter Murphy and Bauhaus are just titanic in my development as an artist. I was going out with a girl whose roommate is a video director. And he had done a lot up to that point when we first met, but we've been friends for about 6 years now, 5 years, and Justin Coloma did my first video for a song called Choose That Girl, and then he made a connection with Billy Corgan and started working with Smashing Pumpkins, and ended up marrying Linda Strawberry, who had played keyboards with Billy in one of his bands. And then Justin's career just kept growing, and he somehow landed doing the last 2 Peter Murphy videos, and that's how he told me to come down to the set, and man, what a day. It was just, and Peter was so cool.
Were you just there to observe, or?
No, I got in some of the shots, but they ended up not using the footage, much to my dismay.
Wow.
But Peter was genuine and warm and just such a gentleman and such an aristocrat, and everything that you would expect or hope him to be, he was. It was amazing. Did I always want to be a musician?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, but I ended up taking engineering jobs. You know, I learned to play the guitar and everything, but I didn't think I could form a band or join a band. I didn't think I had the guts, so I ended up getting a job as an engineer at a studio here in LA around '94. And
what'd you do for that?
I was a runner. I was a runner, and I was sort of a cheerleader, if you will. You know, I was so excited about the music and enthusiastic, and I was, what, 20, 22, 23 years old, and so the producer, Matt Hyde, was just like, I've been fortunate, I've had a few jobs like that with other producers where I'm so in love with music that they hire me to hang out and lend my energy to a session, and sometimes I get to play on it. Ian Astbury was in the studio in like '96. He pulled me aside after about a week and he said, "You should start a band." And I said, thinks I can do it, maybe I can do it, you know? And so I did.
Was he... That's so insane. Like Ian Ashbury, Death Cult, Southern Death Cult. Wow.
Well, you know, picture me like 24 years old and like Ian Ashbury was coming in and Jane's Addiction had been through there and Soul Asylum, which, you know, I wasn't a huge Soul Asylum fan, but Dave Harner was just a huge personality, and so yeah, I got to rub elbows with all these, you know, really amazing, established and talented people, and encouraged by them, you know, and I guess not everybody does have that experience, you know, sometimes you forget that, you're lucky, you know, when you're having a hard time finding the food that day, you forget things like that, and when I talk to you about it, I remember that I'm a very lucky man, and I've had incredible experiences, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What happened with that job?
I ended up relocating to San Francisco and working at Toast Studios there with Philip Steer from a band called Consolidated. Making Manifesto came through there. Then I moved back down to LA and I joined this other band, but I've stayed friends with Matt Hyde all these years, and he actually recorded 3 songs with me 2 summers ago. In '97, there was a band called Medicine that was on the Crow soundtrack, that film Crow, and the bass player, Eddie Boucher, his father is an amazing pop artist, Eddie Boucher. He was the bass player in Medicine, and he formed his own band called The Maids of Gravity that was on Vernon Yard Records, a subsidiary of Virgin, and he had done his first record with Matt Hyde. And Matt introduced me to him, and he named the guitar player. I replaced Eugene, who went on to form Autolux. So I went on tour in like '97 or '96, I think, with Maids of Gravity. That was my first band. Faculty X was a band I formed years later in maybe 2004. That was the first time I'd actually started writing music. I formed it with my best friend at the time, a drummer named Bobby Hall, and we formed it together. I mean, I don't want to be an egotist, but I definitely was the primary music writer. I had a band called Stunned. It was a punk band signed to Geffen, and then when he broke up with that, we brought his bass player with us, so it was the 3 of us. Nick Steinberg, Bobby Hall, and myself, and we formed this band, Faculty X, and I definitely know that I was the propelling musical influence and why it came out of sounding death rock. And it was great. It was a great time. We got to produce an EP with Nick Lene. We worked with Nick Cave and the Virgin Prunes and Killing Joke. So I loved the production on it, and it was a special time. But you know, we had done a showcase even for the guy that had discovered Radiohead. He was saying things like he thought it was brilliant, but didn't know how to market it. And I was hearing more melody. And so I actually got frustrated when we just couldn't stay afloat, and I wanted more control, you know, so I eventually left the band.
So I read somewhere that you have a degree in philosophy. I thought that was a weird choice for a musician, like to...
Well, you know, like I said, I didn't ever have... I had aspirations, or, you know, I really had dreams of being a musician, but I didn't think that I could, you know, so I took the safer route for a while, you know, not that it was easy to, you know, I went to college and I got a degree at a good school, so I'm not writing that off and saying that was the easy route, you know, it's hard to finish school and do all that, and I'm proud of that, but I was also doing it for the wrong reasons, you know, I thought I would better get my education and I'd please my family, you know, and I was taking a more conservative route, you know, and it's funny though, because it was philosophy that I was drawn to, I ended up writing my thesis on aesthetics and a lot of other things, but by the time I finished it, and I had written about being in, you know, that life was like literature, or that you had to be an artist to matter, you know, in some way, and then I had to put up or shut up, you know, and I was like, did I mean what I wrote, you know, if I really did, then I had to abandon that task of being an academic and do something as an artist, and I can't paint, I can't act, and do any I backed myself into a corner. I made it so that I really had no choice. You know, and I'm glad I did. It's been a long, hard road, you know, and I'm still not where I'd like to be, but yeah. I think as a human being, I already said that, you know, I feel like we've got this ability to create things, you know, whether it be literature or painting or film or music or just environments, architecture, you know, anything that is creative. That is the highest calling, I think.